Welcome back, guys. We're here with contributor to care.com, Robi Ludwig, and we're going to talk about a situation in Atlanta where an 11-year-old was left in charge of a 2-year-old. The mother gets back and sees that her 2-year-old child is blue in the face, not really responding well, and eventually dies.
I mean, this is every parent's nightmare, right? It's the worst case scenario where you trust somebody to watch your child and the worst thing happens. And listen, accidents can happen, but when you hear this story, you just say, something was not right. And what was not right is having an 11-year-old watch a 2-year-old, even though there are some people that will say, look to 6th graders on up to watch your child. But what we do know as healthcare professionals and therapists out there, the younger a child is, you really want somebody who's more mature, who has a lot of experience with kids, because they require a lot more knowledge and a lot more self-discipline and coping skills.
So, you have an 11-year-old child. Is 11 just too young across the board?
I would say so. I mean, I don't know too many 11-year-olds that I would hire to babysit. Now, maybe if you want an extra pair of hands, like a mother's helper, and there's an adult there to supervise it. I mean, I will have my son watch my daughter for like an hour, but I'm nearby and there's a phone number, and it's a little bit different when it's a sibling situation, and it's a very limited period of time, and my daughter's 8. So, they are able to basically take care of themselves. It's not like a 2-year-old or an infant.
Right. But in this Atlanta case, the mother thought that the 11-year-old's mother was going to be around. I mean, if you're a parent and you think there's going to be adult supervision, how can you be sure?
Well, I guess you have to know who you're dealing with, and there needs to be a little bit of prep time, right? So I guess you check with the adult, you make sure that the adult's going to be there. You let the adult know if for some reason she is not going to be there, to call you, and you will come back home and get your child. So you present different options. I think what is so sad about this particular situation in Atlanta is that it doesn't sound like anything was well thought out. There were a lot of assumptions. It almost sounds like it was a last minute, I don't know all the details, but I don't know how well this mother knew the 11-year-old. I don't know how well this mother knew the parent. I don't know how well they knew, the family situation. So it seems like there were a lot of unknowns, and that's what you want to do when you're hiring a babysitter. You want to ensure that there are as little unknowns as possible. That you find out the experience. Maybe you have some advance time to watch the babysitter around your child to see how the babysitter interacts, to see if your child even likes the babysitter, because there are even personality issues, where somebody can be adequate. It's just not a good mix or good fit for your family and your child.
So you're saying hold like a babysitter audition?
I like that idea. I really do, because, sometimes you can only know certain things when you see somebody, and observe them doing what they're doing. So you want to see how the babysitter is around your child, how they play with the child, how they handle various things that come up, crying, discipline, helping your child do what they need to do on any given day. And, you also can use your gut feeling that way. Do you feel comfortable or you're not feeling comfortable? Well, while you're observing, you have an opportunity to check yourself and your own comfort level, which is huge.
Now, what about the kind of old school way of leaving a video camera on in your house, hidden, to observe how your babysitter behaves with your children?
Well, I say if a parent wants to do that, then go for it. I think parents should do whatever they need to do. Having said that, there are parents that feel uncomfortable doing that because they feel, if I've hired you and if I've entrusted you, it can feel like a violation of privacy. So while I have never done that, I know that parents do, and I think if that's what you need to do to feel comfortable, then fine.
So what are your tips for parents looking for babysitters? What should they look out for? What questions should they ask? Should they interview? Should they get references?
All the above. I mean, if you are looking for a babysitter, maybe you want to check with the pediatrician to see if they have any recommendations. Sometimes there are people that they allow to hang up signs, and the pediatrician knows sometimes, who's good, who's not. Colleges are a wonderful resource. Maybe somebody is learning early childhood education and they're learning, all about child psychology, and they want to have extra money. I like that idea as an option. There are agencies like care.com where, I'm a contributor for. They have babysitter options and they do background checks. Still you have to do your own check, but then you have, a lot of various possibilities, and then other parents in the community. Sometimes they don't want to share information about who's a good babysitter because they don't want to miss out on having their favorite babysitter available on the night that they need them. But other parents in the community, who's good, and you start to listen out for, who's recommended, who's not. So you have at least some options.
So are there certain characteristics, certain features or factors that make someone a good babysitter? Is it maturity level? Do you think girls are better than boys?
Well, girls probably are a bit more mature at a younger age and might be even more inclined to be maternal a bit. But I would say look at someone who's like 14 years and up for a child that's, on the younger side but not an infant. If we're looking at 2 and under, I would say, you want to make sure that that person is pretty mature and has experience. Not only mature, but has experience. I would look at college it up, and I would also look at an agency that, where you can find somebody who specializes in younger children, because that's a different skill set. That's something very different. So yes, I would say, do the interview. You want to observe. You want to look for somebody who's mature. You want to call references. You want to find out from a person who's hired this babysitter, were they on time? How did they discipline? Did your child look forward to seeing this babysitter? Did you trust the babysitter to drive? Was it a non-driving situation? Were they thoughtful in terms of protecting the child, wearing headgear while playing on bicycles? You really want to ask those questions so that you start to build a 3-dimensional idea of who this person is.
That sounds like, a lot of work, a lot of time to interview, to ask all those questions, to get the references, to make the calls. The whole reason why people want babysitters is because they're busy and they can't stay home. So what would you say to people who say, wow, that's a lot of work?
Well, it is a lot of work, but what's more important than your family? And hopefully you give yourself a little bit of advance notice. And sometimes if you do the work in the beginning, then the next time you won't have to do the same amount of work because you've already done your prep, right? You've interviewed several people, you've gotten references, you've had time to observe the babysitter, maybe even use the babysitter once or twice. But the more you give yourself advance notice, that's why it's really great if it's not a last minute situation. So you've had a little bit of time to prepare for this. Because we don't live in communities where families are necessarily nearby. So we have to kind of make up for that by putting in our time and doing our homework.
So what can parents do when they've chosen the babysitter, they're about to leave? Is there should they leave numbers? Should they, have a pep talk with their kids?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I guess you always want to tell your kids, hey, you have a babysitter. I want you to go to bed on time. I want you not to give the babysitter a tough time. It certainly helps, number one, to know your child and let the babysitter know about your child. And also to invite the babysitter, if she or he is having problems, to call you, that you are a phone call away. So you want them to feel like they can do that comfortably. But certainly if your child has a certain tendency or idiosyncrasy, you want to let the babysitter know so they can be prepared on how to handle that particular situation. Always leave numbers. Leave the number, your number, leave a neighbor's number. If you're in New York City, maybe you want to leave the doorman's number, somebody who's there and a go-to just in case. Of course, the police department, the fire department, a doctor's number, so that the babysitter has an idea that there are different people to call if they have questions. They're not the final line of defense.
Well, those are all great tips. Hopefully parents watching will feel more empowered when they're choosing a babysitter.
Yeah, they should. There are a lot of really good, healthy options out there. You just got to do the work.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too.